Hello. Today we're going to be talking about the water issue. We all know that we have a water shortage in our society. It is estimated that only 3% of the water on Earth is fresh water, and only 1.2% of it is actually drinkable. Most of it is unfiltered or too polluted to be used for farming or for crops, or even for human consumption. Actually, most of the water we consume is not for humans to drink. Most of it, as I said, is dedicated to crops and farming. You have probably heard the fact that for every pound of beef you consume, there have been 1,699 gallons of water invested into that. And for every pound of pork you consume, you have approximately 576 gallons of water put into that. This is a pretty good example of what many people expect to name as the water footprint. You have heard about a carbon footprint, but did you know that every single human activity also leaves a water footprint? Every single thing we do, from farming to the creation of new materials, requires water, which isn't a renewable source. The worst thing is that water is getting out of our hands fast. A lot of underground deposits of water are already dry, and lakes are also in danger of disappearing entirely. Not only this would be a disaster for the economy, but also to infinite ecosystems that live around those lakes. What's even worse is that our most reliable source of fresh water is being poured into the ocean due to global warming, caused in part by the greenhouse gases and in part for the pollution of all kind and for the gases we are liberating into the atmosphere. The poles are actually just melting away, and the poles actually store almost the entire Earth's supply of fresh water. This, of course, would be a disaster to everybody. But how can we solve this economic problem? Many think that going vegan could be the answer to this. As you've heard, the water footprint of a single cow or a single pound of beef is enormous compared to the crops that we cultivate. Now, the problem with that logic is, what we insist on, it's not viable to just substitute an entire economic activity on just agriculture, because it also erodes the ground. I think that the best course of action we could take would be GMOs. I'll explain briefly. GMOs are actually crops that are genetically modified to resist plagues and extreme climates, but there have also been researches to make crops that require less water to be cultivated. As an example, there was a kind of rice that was taught in India that saved millions of lives with its resistance to heat, and also because it required much less water to be cultivated than a regular crop of rice. So that would be one solution. What's the problem with it? Well, GMOs are actually under a monopoly by Monsanto, so in case you want a GMO, you'll probably have to get into Monsanto and tell them that you want the crop. This, of course, would cause a even greater economic problem, as little farmers couldn't pay off the loss by Monsanto. What's even worse is that this is our only alternative. The technological development by Monsanto is far more advanced than any scientific independent study has ever reached. So, what can we do? Is there a second alternative? Many would argue that the best answer would be to just try to convert salt water into fresh water, right? We have almost 80% of the Earth's surface covered in water. Why can't we use that? As you should probably know, salt water is poisonous. You can't use it for crops, and you can't use it to feed animals, lest it be for human consumption. But there is a way to convert salt water into fresh water, so why don't we use it more often? Why do we have this water crisis problem? Well, the thing is, converting saltwater into fresh water is quite an expensive and difficult process, and it is rumored that for every gallon of water purified, there's almost $500,000 invested into it. The technology hasn't been economized yet, so it isn't viable for a long run. What can we do then? I have already offered two answers to this problematic, but I think the most obvious one would be to try and reduce our water footprint. We are all pretty carnivorous, but we can certainly reduce our consumption of meat to the minimum, so that our water footprint is also reduced. We could try for the GMOs, but for that we would also need technological development, and probably the support of a coalition. Anyway, this all gets into an economic and political mess, but it all comes down to it in the end, because we need to support the governors, we need to support our political parties to really address this problem. If it is not done, if we keep doing what we have been doing to this time, we might just disappear. One thing is for sure, we need to do something about it in this precise moment. Every single thing you do has a water footprint, but with the responsibility and cooperation of every single member of society, we can certainly make of this world a much better place, a much more sustainable place to live. I mean, we aren't eternal, but we gotta make it last, right? That's my opinion. Thank you for hearing it, and if you liked it, subscribe and give a like to the video. That is it. I am running out of time, so I'll just leave it to it. Goodbye.